Today, I welcome the host of the Cantina Social Hour, the Cantina Chatter Podcast, the Vintage Collection Podcast, and many other action figure reviews and programs celebrating a decade of Victoria's Cantina. Welcome to the ToyTubers Podcast, Victoria.
Hello, Bill. Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me on the ToyTubers Podcast. It's a pleasure to be here.
10 years. That is a long time to be running a channel.
Yeah. It'll be 11 in April. It's the time has gone by so fast. Like, honestly, when I started doing this, it was just it was kind of a way to kill the time. It was kind of a way to, I already had a big collection and I just wanted to show pieces of it. Back then, there weren't a lot of like toy channels on YouTube. There were a handful of them. You had like Pixel Dan and, Shardamus Prime and, some of the ones that are still around. And then, there were some others that have been gone for like almost just as long. But there weren't that many. And, I had this collection and I said, well, hey, there's this platform, YouTube, that a lot of people are using for different reasons. And there's some people talking about toys. I can do that too. And that's kind of how the genesis of it was. I wanted to kind of just showcase some of the things in my collection and provide reviews for new stuff that was coming out. And that's kind of how it all got started.
Nice. So what are some of the evolutions over the years that you've kind of gone through with your channel? I mean, obviously one thing is showing your collection and doing reviews, right? Like that's been a mainstay, I would say, on your channel, right?
Yeah. That's definitely how it started for sure. Just reviewing. I think the first ones I did were figures that I already had in the collection that were already at that point, like, old, a few years old at least. But then new stuff started coming out, like the Black series back in summer 2013 when that started for the first time. I was like, oh, it's a brand new scale. It's a brand new line. The opportunities are limitless because this is brand new. It's fresh. They can do whatever they want. And so I started reviewing those with that very first wave. And then I continue with the, it was the 3 3/4 inch Black series. I was doing those.
Yeah.
And then I did quite a bit of DC actually as well. A little bit of Marvel. And as far as the evolutions of it, like that was very early on. If you look at one of those videos now, compare it to like a new video, it's like night and day. I mean, a lot of it is, I was recording initially with an iPad that I had at the time, and it worked fine. But I didn't have a microphone. I didn't have lighting. I didn't have, like a specific place to review. It was just kind of like wherever like worked. The editing was very like rudimentary. It was very, very different. But I think part of that too is uploading to YouTube. You couldn't do it in high definition back then.
Yeah.
It was, so a lot of those videos, they are very grainy and very old. And that's a big part of why that is. So, I mean, that's part of what changed. Within a couple of years, I did have a microphone and I did have, lighting, and I did have, specific designated studio like setup that I was using for reviews. So that changed. The editing got better. I started making my own music for all of my videos and all my podcasts and everything. And then I started incorporating the Cantina Chatter podcast in 2016, I believe it was. And then that was kind of like my main show. And then I got into Collect Jurassic World with Collect Jurassic World, who's another YouTuber, another entity out there. There's a lot of us. And then I started doing the Vintage Collection podcast, and then another one called Discoveryland, which is a Disneyland history podcast, because that's another one of my personal passions, the history of Disneyland. So that's what that was. And then I Cantina Social Hour, that's my live stream. I do it on Friday nights. And that started in 2021, I believe. 2021. So yeah, I mean, I guess those are the ways that it's evolved. But also, it's also been part of what the content itself, like I kind of got away from doing reviews like in 2021 or so, and started focusing more on topics, more like a little bit more of a journalistic approach in terms of like toys, like toy industry, like, toy companies, things like that, talking to more people from toy companies. And just, because so many people do reviews, which is great. When I started doing them, there weren't a ton, but like now everybody's doing them. So I was like, well, maybe I can contribute in another way. So that's kind of why I decided to start kind of shifting a little bit. And I don't make as many videos as I used to. I'm just super busy with work and other things. But I like to think that when I do make a video, it's a little more unique. It's a little more fresh. It's a little more something different than, what all the other channels are doing. So that's kind of where my focus is at this point. And of course, meeting all the people along the way, that's been a big change that wasn't there initially, going to conventions, talking to the toy companies, talking to people like yourself, like on various shows, and just getting to know people in this has been probably the coolest part of the whole thing.
I think live streaming has really amplified that kind of thing. Like with podcasts, you kind of get into a groove, but I feel like there's just more free flowing opportunity to have guests and have, different conversations when it's a live stream. So that's one thing that I think is really good about live.
Totally. Yeah. I love live streaming. It's, honestly, like out of everything, like that's probably my favorite thing. Because, I do get to talk to new people. I get to talk to people that I've had on the show multiple times. I get to talk to, friends that I've made in this community. I get to talk to, the viewers that are watching the stream,
Mm-hmm.
And they become part of the show. And, the show, I just make it my own. There's not really like a format. I never go in with like, oh, we're going to talk about this and this and this. I mean, a little bit, but not really. So I kind of wing it every time. And that always makes it more fun because it's live. You never know what's going to happen.
And it makes it easier for planning.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I overplan my live streams sometimes with all the news that we do, and it can be a lot of work.
Yeah, definitely.
Talk about your music. So you compose the music for your channel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I am a musician. I was in a band for a number of years, about a decade back or so, a little more than that now. And yeah, I mean, I've always loved music, and when it came time when I was trying to evolve the channel a little bit and kind of add a little more to it, I was like, oh, I can make my own music because I know how to do that. So, I would pull out the guitar and drum kit and whatever it is, and just like create the music. And that's a lot of fun. And each of my things like has like a unique like song.
Mm-hmm.
Like Cantina Chatter has its own song. The live stream has a song. The Vintage Collection podcast, and I always try to make it feel like it fits within the theme of whatever it is. For example, the Vintage Collection podcast, it talks about Star Wars: The Vintage Collection, which the history of that goes back all the way to the 1970s. So when I was creating that, I was like, well, how can I make it sound vintage but also new? And I think if you listen to it, it has a very 1970s like kind of dance feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
And same with Cantina Chatter. Anything I do like that's Victoria's Cantina branded per se is more like an 80s influence sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It has more of a synth kind of vibe to it. And Collect Jurassic World, that's very islandy. It's very very toned down. Like you have congas, you have some acoustic guitar, and I mean, for me, that's a big part of it is adding the other things to the show, to the podcast, whatever it is, just to make it more my own and to kind of reflect more of what I like to do, what I like to offer. So, yeah, I love making the music, and I always say if anybody wants music for their show, hit me up. I'm happy to help you with that.
What surprised you the most about running a YouTube channel over the years?
That's a good question. I would say a couple of things. Firstly, and this isn't I'll start with the less great thing, is, people can be really mean sometimes. There's, it's not so bad anymore, but like earlier on, and not even right at the beginning, honestly, it was more like 2015 or so to 2020 in that time frame. People go on there sometimes and they see like a girl talking about toys and they're like, they just don't really give you the time of day or the opportunity to listen. They just see that and they'll leave a comment and they'll run off to the next video. And then, some people do take that a little further. Like I remember finding out, gosh, it's been about 6 years now, but somebody said, "Hey, Victoria, there's this whole thing on 4chan, about you, people talking about you and saying terrible things." And I'm like, "Oh God." So I mean, that was surprising. I never thought people, would care so much about me that they needed to go and say all these things that weren't very nice. But luckily it's gone a lot better. And for every one of those people, there's like 10 more that are amazing. So I don't focus on that so much. I know a lot of that stuff is still out there, but I just kind of I don't pay attention to it so much. The other thing that surprised me is that, it's kind of gotten to a point where like people just know who I am and they listen to me, for better or for worse. They ask me questions, if I go to a convention, like, if there's people that want to talk to me or they want to, they whatever, take a pic or anything. But it surprises me that the channel has become what it has become, I guess. It's not the biggest channel in the world, but it's definitely not the smallest either. I put a lot of time into it. I've been doing it for years. But that reflects because I do have those people wanting to talk and wanting to know what I have to say about certain topics, wanting to know what I have to say about the latest Hazard Pulse stream reveals or the latest NECA Ninja Turtle, whatever it is. And that's kind of cool because this isn't really an outlet I have in other aspects of my life. Nobody's going to come, "Oh, Victoria, what do you think about the latest iPhone?" Like toys is my like focus, right? I love other things. I love music. I love Hollywood history. I love Disneyland history. I love cars. I love so many other things, but toys is like, if you will, if I may indulge myself, my like expertise is toys.
Right.
So people come to me asking questions. So I'm a little proud of that. And, I welcome anybody that wants to come to the Cantina. All are accepted here. All are welcome. And let's just have a good time with it and not be too negative, too critical about, they're toys, right?
Kind of something I thought of coming off of you talking about being a woman in the toy world here. Can I ask you an analytics question?
Sure.
So when you look at like the male to female numbers, like when I look at mine, it's like 99% male, 1% female. What does yours look like? Out of curiosity.
That is a really good question. I'm like kind of multitasking. I'm going to look it up.
Yeah, go for it.
It used to be like pretty much split down the middle. I remember looking at it one day and it was, I think 53% male and 47% female. And this was years ago. I don't think that's what it is anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what it was. And I'm very curious to see now. All right. So it is currently, as of today, January 23rd, 2024, male 67.3%, or sorry, 63.7%, female 36.4%.
And like that, I'm looking at mine right now and it's 97.8% male, which is always like surprises me. That seems so heavily skewed. Even for, a heavily male, kind of, I don't know, community or whatever. But yeah, that's great to hear that it's a little more split for you.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think that's awesome. And this, collecting, and some of these fandoms are definitely more, male oriented, but anybody can be a fan. It doesn't matter who you are, where you come from. It doesn't matter when you started becoming a fan of whatever it is. Like, if you're a fan, you're a fan. So,
yep.
And this, I do appreciate that. It's not 98% one way or the other. I'm glad that it's a little bit more of a mix.
You kind of got into this a little bit. I don't think specifically, but I like to ask about the concept of influence. And sometimes people think it's, the capital I influencer question and like what it's like to be an influencer or whatever. But I'm more thinking about this idea of you have reach, right? Even my smaller channel, I have a certain amount of reach, and with that comes certain, realities that people do pay attention. People do listen to you, like you said. They take your advice and whatnot. How do you handle that as a responsibility or a, just kind of, I don't want to say commitment, but like, yeah, I guess a responsibility.
I guess most importantly, I'm very conscientious of any messaging that I put out there. Because I know there is that reach, and I know there is like that responsibility to provide something that, first and foremost, like this is, it's meant to inform, right? Any videos, anything I do, it's meant to inform, but, I want it to be entertaining too. I mean, that's part of, as a musician, as other things, I like to entertain. So there's that too. But I'm always conscious about, making sure that the message I'm putting out there is not negative. I believe in being optimistic and spreading positivity and kindness. And those are character traits that some people kind of lose sight of, I think, as their channel or whatever it is becomes bigger and bigger. And I think, if you do have that platform, you need to use it for good. And you need to use it responsibly. So there's a wealth of things that I could speak to on a daily basis that, might be, that could potentially be important. But I really have to focus on, I have to keep it in mind. I'm talking about toys, that in and of itself is not the most important of topics, but how can I focus within that to identify certain things that could be made better? So I try to focus on those things, but at the same time, I think when important things happen, when, you see a lot of people on Instagram or YouTube or whatever it is that maybe have those platforms and they're using it in the wrong ways. I think it's kind of important for other people that can speak against that to do so at the right times. There was a recent thing in the last couple of weeks with a big YouTube channel that where things were being said, and it was kind of spreading on social media. And it's, I kind of use that opportunity to speak, against that sort of thinking.
Understandably.
Because
I'm familiar with that topic, I'm pretty sure.
yeah, I mean, it's it's just kind of one of those things, like, if we're kind of all in this together, and it doesn't make any sense to me for somebody that has that platform to try and alienate or try and make it more about one group than another. Because it doesn't matter what it is, Star Wars, Batman, Ghostbusters, like that's for everybody, right? That's, everybody comes into that not based on any biological or societally imposed factors. Like, that's people coming into something because they're interested in it. It captivates them in some way. They love it. They have a passion for it. So I don't think, it's really wise for people to kind of start boxing things up and say, oh, this is our part, this is your part, this, whatever it is. But yeah, no, I think, if you have the platform, you really have to, it's important to kind of stand up when you need to stand up, but also, to listen when you need to listen, because nobody has all the answers. Doesn't matter how big your channel is. And, some channels do lose that humility, and they kind of lose that ability to just sit back and say, hey, it's not, maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe I have something to learn here. Some channels don't do that. So it's just really important to be wise about what you do, to spread the positivity. And, people watch your channel because they like what you have to say. So it's important to remember that.
I think there's like a social media, not a trend, but a phenomenon that's like that pushes some channels, many channels really, that like it almost like pushes them towards those kinds of like extreme, edgy fiery kinds of takes, and
Mm-hmm.
then, they see the numbers, they see the engagement, and they see all this stuff happening, so they start doing more of it. And it's like sometimes I wonder, like, how you like some channels would they find in themselves to almost like commit to this just nasty kind of toxic approach that just seems like they're doing it just to grow their channel and stay big or get bigger or whatever. But it seems like it kind of pushes people in that direction sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And if that's your aim, you're going to attract an audience that is probably pessimistic, has
Mm-hmm.
problems, has things that they haven't worked through. So, you may be thinking about what your best interests are as a channel, as, if you're looking at those statistics and going off of that to inform what content you create, but you're also attracting that negativity, and, you're not doing anything to alleviate, there's plenty of negativity in the world, right? There's plenty of things that are far from perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So why not focus on the things that we can make a little bit better? So, I mean,
Yeah.
I understand what they're doing, but you're not helping anybody, honestly.
No, and it like I think there had to be a little seed of that to begin with, because that that became their audience, and that audience sort of pulled them in that direction. You know what I'm saying? Like they kind of somehow were able to build that negative space audience, and then that audience sort of pulled them in that direction. And it's sad to see, because some of these channels, and specifically the one that we're probably talking about at the same time here, is like they were once great. There was some good stuff on there at one point, but then it just spirals into yeah. Anyway, we can
Yeah,
move on from that.
they fall to the dark side.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking about what you were talking about, not being necessarily one of the biggest channels, but when I think of Star Wars, when I think of like going to YouTube and I want to see, what's going on with Star Wars, what's going on with Vintage Collection, what's going on with Black Series, I think of your channel. Like to me, you're one of the biggest in that regard in terms of just like in my mind. That's who I think about when I think Star Wars on YouTube. And obviously, you're much far beyond just Star Wars. But would you describe Star Wars as like your primary focus?
Oh, well, first of all, thank you. Yeah, no, for sure. 100%. Star Wars has always been, always will be my main focus. I mean, I love other things. I can't help it. I like everything. If you were to look
Yeah.
around my collection, you would see Jurassic Park, you would see Batman, you would see Ninja Turtle, you'd see Ghostbusters, you'd see uh what else? I have the Sky Striker.
Yep.
I have some Harry Potter. I have Jaws. I have all kinds of things. So I mean, I like so many things to varying degrees, but for me, like Star Wars is more than anything else has like spoken to me as a person. Like since I was a kid, it really like inspired me. I really
Mm-hmm.
connected to those characters, and I think that's reflective in what surrounds me. The I'm surrounded by things that like reinvigorate me as a person, that spark my creativity and inspire me. And why would anybody have it any other way? But yeah, for 100%, it is the top focus of what I collect. It is the biggest thing in my collection.
Nice. So speaking of creativity, what are some things you've done in the past, or I don't know, strategies you've tried with your channel that have really like boosted that creativity for you?
That's hard to say because I think the channel has, like we were talking about earlier, it started as kind of like this more, I don't want to say archaic, but if you look at any video from that long ago to now, like it's totally different. But
And that goes for almost every single channel. Like that's just a
sure.
normal thing.
I don't look so much at what other people are doing. I
Mm-hmm.
watch a handful of YouTube channels, but I don't watch a whole lot of as many as you might think. I don't watch a ton of Star Wars like reviews. I don't watch a
Mm-hmm.
ton of like. I mean, for me, like I see the press releases. I watch the live streams from like Hasbro, for example. There was one this morning,
Mm-hmm.
and then I just kind of I reflect on it and I think about it, and then I get to talk to other people. through Social Hour, through the Vintage Collection podcast, whatever it is. And then that's kind of like what I do for it. But I don't take a lot. I mean, I kind of try to do my own thing, honestly. And I feel that's kind of always been the case. But I do try and experiment with things here and there. I used to do like stop motion. I did that a little bit back in, 2014 or so. I did a little bit of that. I had skits that I was doing in the beginning of some of my videos, like mostly like Jurassic videos back in like 2016.
Was that skits with like the figures or skits like with you?
With the figures, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Some of them were pretty fun. I had fun with it while I was doing that, but then I get to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm bored, so I'm going to do something different with it.
Yep.
I'm going to take that out. Maybe I just extend like I put something else at the beginning of the video. I mean, I try and play with things a little bit, but for the most part, I kind of just, I try to think about what's going to work for this video. Does it need an introduction? Does it not? Is it, do I just go right into the topic? Do I, have multiple cameras set up? Do I, just kind of focus on, do I need a script for this? Do I need to plan what I'm going to say in advance? Do I need to give it a couple of days to think about it and see if I have any other ideas I want to add? Like, I mean, sometimes I'll just go for it. Like, it really depends, like how I'm feeling and what the topic is and, how I feel on any given day, because some days I might be like, oh yeah, I'm going to set up multiple cameras. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And then I'll get there and I'm like, I'll just have one camera. I'll have my microphone and I'm going to talk. So it varies.
Yeah. I get like, sometimes I get ambitious in the thinking about it. And then when it comes down to like recording it, I'm like, okay, that's not going to work, or that's a bit too much, or, and I always end up like scaling it back down. I had another question there for a second. Scripting. So for example, what are some things that you might lean towards like writing a script for versus just doing off the cuff?
I don't really do toy reviews anymore, but when and if I did, it's completely unscripted. It's like, okay, here's the toys, here's the joint, it does this, it does that. I don't need a script for that, right? I'm talking about the toy. If I'm going to do a comparison, here's the one that came out 2 years ago. That's just a little bit different. Totally. It's that kind of thing. But if it's more of like something that requires a little more investigation, like I did a video. I guess it was a few years. It was probably 2020 at this point. The Walmart was just shipping everything like in weird ways. Like the retro collection Star Wars. I received one that was like folded up like a taco, and it became known as Taco Leia. So like it's just stuff like that where I'm like really investigating, trying to talk to different sources, get information, and like I'll write a script for it. Like that. There was one I did like everything wrong with the Mattel Amber collection that they were doing years back. Like that had a script because I needed to make sure I hit all these points. That doesn't mean I'm sitting there reading it, but I'm referring to it and I'm thinking about it. Things like that, I'll do it. What else? Just anything that requires a little bit more like thought, more of a topic sort of video rather than like focusing like on a specific toy.
What's a tool that you would be unable to live without? Like a tool in terms of production, whether it's a piece of software, a piece of lighting, a camera, like a specific tool.
There are many. I would say the microphone is really important for me. I hate the way I sound without a microphone. It's not that I hate the way I sound. It's just I hate the way that me as a person sounds without a microphone. So I would not be able to make a video without a microphone unless it was just, it happened. Like right now I'm editing this. I went to Japan back in September, October, and I've been editing. I took 150 plus videos while there, and I've been editing this thing for months now. And there are some scenes where like it was just in the moment, spontaneous. I didn't have a microphone like hooked up, but and I'm okay with that because it was like you're kind of in the moment. But generally speaking, 99% of the time, I need to have a microphone somehow, some way.
I agree. I think microphone and sound is like almost equal to the the visuals and the lighting and all that stuff. Like I think I think sound is so important, and that's
Yeah.
no surprise coming from a musician. With you, I mean, it makes sense that you would
Yeah.
appreciate that.
I mean, there's those videos that you watch sometimes where somebody's talking and they'll have like a track like over and you can barely hear what they're saying. It's like, come on, like, did you not watch this before you posted it?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and like that's part of the growing process. I think a lot of those types
Yeah, for
are
sure.
newer. Um, so Japan. So you went to Japan. Was that a vacation? Was that a work thing? Like, what was that? What'd you do there?
It was vacation. It was my second time going. My husband and I love to travel, and we try to travel like at least every year, go somewhere.
Hmm.
But that place in particular, the first time I went, I just fell in love with it. There's other places that I've fallen in love with, but like I love. There's something special about Japan,
Hmm.
and yeah. So I mean, I was there on vacation, and the first time I went, like I did go with it in mind that I could make toy videos because there's a lot of toy stuff in Japan.
Yeah.
So I went there purposefully to make, not to make toy videos, but I knew that while I was there, I could focus on that. And I did,
Hmm.
and I made a couple of videos about that. But this time I kind of wanted to focus more on other things, just the sights, the sounds, the cultural aspects. And then if I could work in toys somehow, I did do that. But yeah, no, I went there strictly for vacation and because I love going there, and it's just an amazing place.
Does your husband like help film stuff? Are you like recruiting him to shoot you while you're doing toy hunts or anything like that? Or
Not so much during toy hunts, but he does help. Like at Comic Con, for example, I'll be interviewing like, somebody, and then he'll be filming.
hmm.
And so he does help with that. Or yeah, even like on a vacation, he'll help with like, I'll tell him I'm gonna walk this way. You're gonna follow me with it. I'll direct him. But yeah, he does
Hmm.
help with things like that. But day to day stuff, like no, not at all.
No, is he into collecting and all that stuff or
Not one bit.
no? Same here. My wife is not at all into any of it. She's like,
It's how it
okay, you go
usually
do your
seems
thing.
to be.
Um, what are some goals you have for the future of your channel?
That's a good question. I'd like to be a little more regular about publishing videos. I post things on Instagram pretty regularly, but YouTube is kind of like my main thing, right? So I'd like to be a little better about posting videos regularly. Now, that does become challenging with other things going on, especially when, I'm very OCD about what I put out there and how I present it. So I want it to be good. I don't want to just put a video out just to put a video out. I want it to be like specific. Um, like this Japan video I was talking about. It's 150 plus clips that I filmed, and to condense that all into one video, it's a challenge. And
Hmm.
I know I was talking on Social Hour like in October and November and December, like, yeah, I'm gonna try and have it up by the end of this month. I'm gonna try and have it up by the end of this month. I said that over and over, and I still don't have it out. But
Hmm.
I try to cut myself some slack there because I know that this is a video that will be important to me, and it's a video that I want to reflect the experience that I had there, and also live up to like the VC standard, so to speak. Um, so sometimes things do take me a while, but I do get them done. They just take a while. I have videos that I shot probably like in 2019. I haven't ever gotten around to editing. I may someday, I may not.
Hmm.
Um, but that's definitely one thing I would like to do. I would also like to. I mean, I want to grow as a channel, of course. You know, it takes work to create a channel, to continue with it, to grow it. But nobody wants to stay stagnant. So, I want to continue to grow the channel. And maybe if I got you know, uh, a little bit more active with making those videos, that could help. And also, I think I'd like to talk to more people. I mean, that's always my goal with social hours is to have new guests on, to talk to more people, to hear more things, to learn. I love to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many things that I still don't know about YouTube, about any about other things, and I want to learn, I want to grow, and I want to become better at anything that I do, really. So I guess I would say those three things.
Nice. Thinking about like that long form. So like this Japan video is actually going to be like a very long video. And that makes me think of that room tour that you did, which is an amazing video. I mean, that how many hours did you put into just not even just filming it, but like editing and like just producing this whole thing? That was a big one.
Too long. And that was the very first like showcase I had ever done of the collection. Like I don't know why it took me that long, but so I started filming it actually before I went to Japan in September. I started filming it,
Mm-hmm.
and then it would be October and November, and then that shelf looked different. I'm like, oh well, these figures came in since then, and they're not even on the. So I had to keep going back and reshooting that, and
Yeah.
that's part of what held it up. But yeah, like every night, Monday through Thursday, for example, I had it in mind. Okay, I'm going to get home from work. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to spend this evening working on two shelves. I'm going to edit two shelves. I'm going to do the voiceover. Tomorrow night I'll do two more shelves. It was that kind of thing where I'd kind of really trying to focus on what it was. Sometimes I did more, sometimes I did less. It just really depended on how I was feeling. But yeah, it took a long time. It was a lot of time in editing for sure. And it is an hour and a half video.
What's like what's like a big one, like a big hour plus long, recorded video, not a talk show or a podcast or anything, but like what's something that you have in mind that you would love to do for some other kind of big one like that?
For a big one like that, so there is something.
And feel free to, if you don't want to share it, if it's like keep it in your pocket until you put it out there. But if there's something you could share,
Yeah, something that's long like that.
even a vague concept.
Yeah, I don't want to make anything that's that long ever again, honestly. Unless it's like a feature length film, which I'd love to do that. But
Yeah.
I think for something like really you could have watched the whole movie in the length of that video, like at least like 101 Dalmatians or something kind of an hour and a
Right.
half long. But I don't know why I said that movie of all movies, but
Well, animated movies tend to be, they tend to be that
yeah,
length.
about that, yeah. Yeah, I don't know that I'd want to make anything that long. I mean, I think for me personally, like 15 minutes is good, 20 minutes. And I do have some things I am working on. And I'll tell you this one because this isn't a secret. I talked about this in the live stream last week. So back in 1989, I saw Batman in theaters. The Michael Keaton
Mm-hmm.
Batman it was probably the second movie I saw in the theaters. And I should not have been there. I really shouldn't have. I was little. I should not have been there seeing that movie, but I was. And,
Yeah.
and I liked it more than I didn't like it. I was just scared of a couple of things. Um, to this day, I don't know why, but shortly thereafter, my dad took me to this video rental store, and he bought me my first Batman action figure. I'd have no idea why in the world my dad would buy me a Batman action figure, but he did. And I still remember that day. I remember seeing it on the shelf, and I remember taking it home and opening it and all that. Like I don't forget anything, unfortunately, for better or for worse. And I still have that figure. It's a very special figure to me. I think I showed it in the collection video. And since then, I have recently purchased like a carded version of that figure. It's unpunched. It's gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and my intent is to next time I visit my family. They live in Texas, where I grew up. I'm gonna go with them. I'm gonna go find my dad, and I'm gonna have him be a part of this video where we revisit this location. It's not a video rental place anymore, of course. I think now it's like a
Mm-hmm.
mattress firm or something.
Right.
But it's cool because two doors down, there's a comic book shop there now that wasn't there, before. So I may tie that in somehow because I've gotten to know the owner there a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And this video is kind of just going to be like going on like down memory lane, so to speak. But it's going to be really cool to have my dad as part of the video because I've never really featured like my parents in any of my videos or family in any of my videos. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah. I think it's important for, people our age to bring their family into, their world a little bit more. And, I think sometimes about like interviewing, and this would be totally unrelated to toys, but like I sometimes, I have this microphone, I have this setup where like my mom's husband, he is a Vietnam veteran, and like I sometimes think like I really should interview him. He's not getting any younger, and and even just interviewing my mom about the old days or something like that. Like I think of things like that. Like that's something I would also like to do, and it might not be anything I ever like publish online, but just having that, just for his history's sake, history of the
Yeah.
family and stuff. It's nice.
It's funny you say that because I've been thinking about that too. I mean, all of us have cell phones. If you're interested in making a YouTube video, it doesn't have to be about toys, or it doesn't have to be a YouTube video. It can be for TikTok. It can be for just your own archives at home. Talk to people, make a video. Share what it is that's on the inside, and let that come out through the video you make. But the reason I'm saying that's interesting you mentioned that is because there are, I had my great grandmother, talking about my family still, she lived to like 98, but she was one of the first people to settle in the town my parents live in now, where I grew up. And she had a lot of stories, and we used to hear the stories, but we never really documented her. I mean, it would have been a little harder back, 20 years ago. But because, we didn't have the tech we have now, but it would have been doable, should have been done. Here in the town I live in now, there's like historical things that I would like to kind of document, because sometimes those things are there and then they're not because of progress or whatever it is. Right. So, I mean, it's really important to talk to people. And if you have an important story or somebody that you can learn something from, to do that and to document it, and to, then you'll always have that memory, and you'll be able to relive it by watching it.
Well, it's a great message to, I think, end with. And I just want to thank you for joining me on the ToyTubers podcast. Do you want to just quickly share your social media and stuff before we sign off?
Sure. Yeah. So it's Victoria's Cantina Anywhere. If I was making this channel now, I don't think that would be the name, but that was
what would
the
it
name.
be? What would you name it?
I don't think I would put my name in it. I think it would just
Oh,
be
okay.
like the Toy Cantina, or I don't know, something
Yeah.
different. But but yeah, it's Victoria's Cantina Anywhere. It doesn't, in YouTube, Facebook, Instagrams are our most active outside of YouTube. Even, we're on X, on TikTok even, which I need to put some time into that because I haven't made a lot of videos there either lately.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the Cantina Social Hour on Friday nights. Bill, I know you're going to be joining us soon, I hope.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, good. So that's Friday night, 7 p.m. Pacific time. And I also recently announced Cantina Coffee Hour, which is something that's coming next month. And this will be like a bi-monthly show on Saturday mornings. And then, the Vintage Collection podcast is kind of the current series I'm focusing on. There is a new episode coming tomorrow. I don't know when this is going to be published, but as of right now, it is tomorrow our time.
Mm-hmm.
And then those are kind of the two things I'm really focusing on. Once this season of TBC podcast is out of the way, then I'll kind of bring in Cantina Chatter, one of the other shows. That's a long way of saying Victoria's Cantina basically anywhere.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, everybody.